So,
Welcome to the Dagnabbit boys, by the way.
welcome to the Dagnabbit boys. I wanted to start the podcast with a question.
Yes, sir.
So, if you're a businessman, an entrepreneur, somebody that wants to make money, and you looked at both of us, me in a blazer with a mic and a stand, and you with sunglasses on, who would you want to do business with?
Probably the casual, street guy, the guy that kind of has his hands on the pulse of the people and doesn't let himself be constricted by a suit jacket.
Not a man in casual yet formal attire and a watch.
To me,
that's your first lesson.
To me, that's very like 20 years ago. This is the modern reality. And I know you have your cup of coffee, which you did not prepare for me. I noticed you did not
want a cup of coffee.
No.
And that's your first lesson.
That's my first. You don't ask for something you don't want. I understand that. But I have a watch on as well. I have a chain on. I got a Kango hat. I got the sunglasses, which you asked me to bring. So it's an interesting thing that you actually asked me to bring the sunglasses today.
I think you would have worn them either way.
No, I wouldn't have. You said bring the sunglasses, so I was like, all right, I'll bring them. It's actually very uncomfortable to wear sunglasses inside.
Is it?
It kind of is, yes. It only really feels good when you have to block something out. Which
we look so sick today.
We look awesome.
We look fucking amazing today.
Yeah, I mean, we're just hot guys. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say most of the viewers for this episode are going to be women.
This is a hot guy podcast.
Yes. I mean, if you want to get fucking finger fucked, you know where to find us.
Yeah.
Message the Dagnabbit Boys Instagram first one of us to get it calls dibs.
White shirt, blazer, that's like Miami, you're like Vegas.
Oh yeah.
Either way, there's cash flow absolutely storming through this podcast.
Well, we have to wipe your pussy juice up with $100 bills.
Which is really bad for the pH of I mean, can you imagine putting a $1 bill, everything on that?
No. I guess you've never had a woman so wet she leaked over everything.
A woman so wet she got all your money wet?
Yeah.
And then you went to a 7-Eleven, you tried to give him $1 covered in
pussy juice, and you're like, with the exchange rate, this is actually $10.
And you're like, how cool is this? And he's like, I don't want to fucking take this. This is disgusting.
Oh, you think the cashier at the gas station is going to be grossed out by pussy juice?
He'd go, thank you.
Yeah, it is what he would say.
Yeah, that's what he would do.
Give me a Zin. Give me a Zin right now. Give me a mother effing Zin.
I'm in a blazer, so you have to.
Please, sir, give me a mother effing Zin.
You have to make it a deal. You have to leverage.
Oh, leverage?
What are you offering me?
Okay. I'll guarantee you next time that you Venmo me money for Zins, I'll get you them.
It's a very good guarantee.
Because I guaranteed that today.
Yeah, I've on Instagram. There's this guy Luke Belmar. He's awesome. He's like a crypto guy. He's one of those guys that's like rich, I guess, off investing, but you don't really understand how he's rich. And he's just on coke, so he just posts reels of him on podcasts on coke. He won't admit he's on coke, but he's definitely on coke.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, I sat down with 4 billionaires. I asked them their key to success. Health. They all said health. And he goes, because the king ate better than the peasant. Don't you think the king ate better than the peasants? Don't you think the king studied more than the peasants? And I was like, is this guy trying to make the case for a deserving monarchy, right? Like bringing up a king is the craziest thing. She's like, well,
a lot of those people do believe in monarchy. Essentially,
it's the worst example possible of him being like, why do you think the king had more stuff than the peasants? And you're like, because that's how monarchies are structured. That wasn't.
You know how we're gonna make big bucks? Feudalism.
Yeah, that's how he talks.
Yeah,
it's just feudal. He's just like, and he's so. He says the most.
I got these serfs. They don't eat shit.
He says
I eat everything.
Funniest shit. Where he's just like, he's like, I spent a year and a half sitting around a fire, and they don't say brainstorming, they say mastermind. I was sitting around a fire, just bringing people in, just masterminding. And it's like, Coke and having a lot of money is cool because, like, it's kind of a testament to, like, cognitive behavioral therapy, which, I shoehorn in a lot, but it really, his perception of his
So
life
you're saying we should
amazing.
get him on the podcast, make him take the test?
I think he would probably say that those tests are not accurate and they're the sign of like a weak. Like, why would you let them tell you how you feel? You know how you feel. How do you feel right now? And then
guys on coke have the most like consistent philosophy. They have like an actual philosophy, and then it wears off after 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, I do look at this guy and I'm like, I wonder, like, is he going to look back in 10 years? Because he'll be rich either way. So it's not like he's looking at his life right now as like a failure. He seems to be doing fine. But he, like, yeah, in 10 years, is he going to look back and be like, you can just not think that. That's the thing about coke is like all of your thoughts that you're so hyped on, when you're off it, you're like, you could just not think those things. And it's actually, you have the same life.
Yeah.
It's like he's sitting around a fire talking to his friends, but in his mind, he's masterminding. And
yes.
Sitting around that fire actually made him,
it is awesome.
$5 million.
It is awesome how many people just see the world as like, all right, these are my underlings. Like, no matter who the conversation, like, no matter who you're talking to, they're just like, well, I'm above them, and I've decided why.
Yeah, but he also acts like everything's fair, so it's okay to be above people. He's like, just because I put in the work. I mean, people make fun of him a lot because he had this one quote where he's like, fucking Tristan Tate. I was going to meet up with him, watch the video. Favorite drink, Johnny Walker Black. So what I buy? Johnny Walker Black. That night, sitting in the war room with him, sipping Johnny Walker Black. Do you know why? Because I studied, bro. And it's like this whole business acumen thing. And I think there's the whole new wave of finding fulfillment and true freedom through business, which I find to be very funny. Because, I mean, obviously I'm saying this is a poor guy, but if you're at the top of business, you're sort of the most caged in by business, where they think there's this sort of way out, and it's like, but your whole life is business. All you think about is fake systems, systems that are made up.
Yeah.
You're so far from nature, and it's like literal nature. It's like, how often are you, he posts videos in nice places, but he's only on a yacht. He's only in a hotel. It's like, when was the last time you walked through the woods? I'm not walking through the woods. I'm also not claiming to be free, but it's like, you have all this money.
I'm claiming to be free.
That's also the thing with that guy. You are free. I mean, look, you got glasses inside. But
but you told me to wear them, so in a way, I'm kind of the deeper slave. I'm kind of like I'm at a slave to the podcast, to the content production.
Well, it's also I mean,
I'm working the cotton fields of reels.
Yeah, I sing spirituals when I make reels. When you're editing a clip, you go, one day. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm singing One Day by that Jewish guy. I consider that a slave song.
Jewish people were slaves. Look it up.
They were.
Look it up. Learn your real history.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
I want to go back to the sipping Johnny Walker Black.
Yeah.
Doesn't that suck that you can't be a real businessman if you're just an alcoholic? Because the idea of sipping liquor is crazy to me. Just sit there and enjoy it.
Yeah, that honestly would. I mean, honestly, I think if you have enough money, you can spit it into like, why the fuck would I sip it? I paid for it.
Yeah.
Liquor gets you fucked up. It's stupid to enjoy something. It doesn't taste good.
Yeah.
You're lying to yourself. Because they all say, like, I actually love the taste of whiskey, but maybe the way you dom them is being by, like, liquor tastes like shit. You know it tastes like shit.
Sometimes it's so weird. It's so weird that sometimes you like the taste of liquor, and then other times you're like, I hate this. I'm just here to get to the other thing.
There's enjoyable notes. I mean, like, when I would still drink, I would drink bourbon, but I liked it with ice. And then you let it water down, and you get the alcohol taste out, and then under it is actually good taste of the barrel.
I mean, it's complex. It's very complex, the taste. I would like swish it around a little bit, and then I'd be like, all right, here we go, about to burn, because I'm a pussy deep down. I don't like the burn.
We're all pussies deep down. We're all scared.
Yeah.
That's also, the interesting thing with those guys is it's just sort of like viewing yourself as this machine, and then also saying you're free. It just seems like immediately paradoxical.
Yeah.
Because essentially what he's saying is he's like, I am one of the best producers. I am a valid part of the economy. I am affirmed by my financial output. And for that, I'm free. And it's like, no, you're just a slave that gets to live in a house is what you are. You know what I mean? Like, you're just the best of a worker.
You know what I think is I was thinking about memes on the drive over here about the way, like, internet memes I'm not talking science, dog. I ain't talking science. I ain't talking Richard Dawkins. But I'm talking real.
What? Science?
Because meme, that was a scientific thing. As a memes are like social genes. But so internet memes are interesting as they give you a sense of individuality while engaging in like a collectivist activity.
Yeah, I think that's kind of at its height. I was talking about that like with Erewhon. I think it's a similar concept. It's the market you come to be an individual.
Yeah.
It's a place packed with individuals. And then, yeah, everybody's proud of their algorithm, which is also paradoxical because that's a thing that's created for you by a computer. None of it's your decision. You haven't made anything. You've just consumed stuff enough to they go, well, this guy really loves looking at guys with no arms.
Yeah.
And you go, I'm so crazy. Even though I'm addicted to a social media app, I'm actually doing something different. And it's like, you're still within the app.
My algorithm sucks because all they show me is people posting stand-up clips because I don't really look at like regular reels.
That's good.
So they just show me what I'm trying to do, but other people doing it successfully.
I mean, you should be on it as little as possible.
Yeah.
I think the dream of any comedian should be to post enough reels where once you make money and you have a lot of followers, you then hire a social media manager and you never go on Instagram again.
That would be dope.
I mean, how great would it be to go to a show, already have a guy that films it all, so you're not even thinking about it, you just know it's happening. That guy clips it up because you've talked to him enough and he knows what to do. And essentially, if you're a comic, any clip from your set you should be fine with because you should be fine with your set. And then that gets posted. You don't even know how it does. You just know 3 of them a week come out and there's money.
Yeah, I've been trying to post every single day. It sucks, but I've been trying to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you do that. It seems almost impossible to post every day. But
well, I repost stuff, and I also go and just make clips.
Yeah.
All that 20 minutes. And at the end of the month, I'll have another 20 minutes to clip off of.
Do you do a new 20 minutes every month?
No.
What do you mean?
Like, because next month I'm filming a Chatterbox thing, another 20 minutes of Chatterbox.
I see.
And then I'll have another 20 minutes off of that. And
that's 20 posts.
Yeah.
And that's $2,000 a post. That's $40,000.
Yeah, it's
because he studied.
I studied. Yeah, I studied the masters. Studied the masters. Andrew Scholes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I think is crazy about Andrew Scholes? I don't know if we talked about this in a podcast. His child is IVF, in vitro fertilization.
His child is?
Yeah, the one he had with his wife.
It's not very manly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You're actually a pussy. If you can't knock a bitch up with your own seed.
I mean, that's what's bad about playing the games of trying to be like a tough guy is like in vitro fertilization is totally fine. In fact, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
It's amazing it exists that people are getting to raise children even if nature wouldn't allow them. They get to have a healthy child.
Yeah.
But then if you believe too many fake ideas, you might hate yourself for that.
Yeah, and I do think it should be brought up anytime anyone mentions him that his child was not conceived through sex; it was conceived through machinery.
Yeah, and I like you because you don't believe that, but you know, he believes that.
Yes.
So you play other people's games. I mean, chances are with him, he might just blame his wife.
Oh yeah,
That's kind of the logical outcome of if you're, like a bro-y dude who believes in being a motherfucking man. You're not.
And he believes that he can. What's the word we can say that's not censored on YouTube for the R thing? He thinks he can R Kendrick, a man from Compton.
Yeah.
It's so crazy to be like a guy whose mom is a ballerina and be like, yeah, I could probably take anybody from Compton.
His mom is a ballerina?
Yeah, his mom owned a dance studio in like one of the richest parts of New York.
What was it, like a hardcore, real-ass New York dance studio?
Oh, it was New York. They had $1 slices next door.
Yeah. I love being proud of your city in a way that just doesn't really make sense.
I think being proud of any city is stupid.
It's very stupid.
Yeah.
Very dumb.
I mean, I ain't proud of nothing. I am proud of I'm proud of my block because that's where all my partners are.
I think it's cool to like stuff. I mean, liking stuff kind of always wins. Like, if somebody's like, New York's so much better than LA, and you just go, well, I really like living in LA. Like, they can't really say anything.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, yeah, it's an opinion, and I enjoy it.
I was at the Comedy Store and one of the comics on the thing. I was kind of explaining how it worked at the Comedy Store a little bit, and he was like, we from New York. We don't do stuff like that. I'm used to the New York thing. It's like, it's just different.
Like what?
like the thing, we got to have a host.
Hosts suck.
It's like, why? But why? You need a guy to come up in between because everybody's doing the same amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same amount of time you'd be doing at the cellar.
Yeah. I mean, that's a wonderful example of being proud of something that doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
To be like, in New York, a guy comes up in between the comics, and he says a couple things.
He makes people clap.
And then the next guy goes on.
Yep, comedy's so much easier there because of that.
That
is what's crazy, is that a host does make comedy easier. Like, than just the shotgun thing.
Yeah.
The shotgun thing's so much harder, and it's like, aren't you like a gritty, tough comedian? Shouldn't you just be able to not have a host that gives up the energy again, and then when you get up, the energy... you get an extra clap when you have a host.
Yeah. Well, there's like a back and forth argument too, where it's like New York can create better comics because you get better the more sets you do, and New York has more sets. So from a structural argument, it has that advantage. But if you want to talk about like what city is harder to do comedy in, it's definitely LA.
Yeah.
Because it's a slightly worse place to do comedy in.
Yeah.
It's also not that much worse of a place to do comedy in. I mean, it's like, that argument's always interesting to me, where it's like, I'm sure at some point in my career, I'd like to live in New York for a year or so.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in New York, but I think if I had the opportunity to be passed at the cellar and get multiple sets, that'd be an interesting part of my life.
Yeah.
But, you know, you think about that argument of like, oh, you have to go to New York. And you also look at like, okay, well, who are some of the greatest comics? And then you can be like, well, like, you know, Bobby Lee, Andrew Santino, Steve Martin, Richard Pryor, Tom Segura, all started in New York. And I think those guys are good at comedy.
But Pryor wasn't really in New York long enough to...
LA.
Oh, yeah.
They're LA guys.
Pryor's weird. I would say Pryor probably started in San Francisco. But Cosby did too. I mean, San Francisco was the biggest comedy city for like 10 years.
Pryor's a little amorphous because the comedy scene was amorphous.
Yeah.
But, you know, at his time when he was doing it, he was...
I mean, New York wasn't the biggest comedy city until like 20 years ago, which is weird.
Is that true?
It's like maybe 20 or 25.
Yeah.
But like, because the store was so big, you know?
Yeah.
The store, I mean, until like fucking Kinnison died, fucking Dice is like... Dice was an LA comedian.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, you know, I definitely agree there's more sets in New York. Those guys, you're able to work as more a working class comic in New York.
Yeah.
But then it's also just like, you look at some of the best comics of all time and they're from all different types of places.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's never good to think in terms of black and white. But
also, I will say that there's an advantage to New York that there wasn't before of like, with the comedy scene developed to the sense that it is, like, of course, the biggest city is going to have the most sets, where it wasn't always true of that. You know, like Boston, you could probably hit more sets than fucking New York at a certain point.
The only bad part about LA is that with the mayor, you usually get burned on your way to do a set, where like New York comics can take the subway and then they can just walk to the cellar and they can do like, you know, 5 or so sets a night around there. With LA, it's like you drive. And his new Streets on Fire law, he made the tar, you know, he doesn't set it, so he just keeps it. He doesn't use asphalt, he uses mostly tar, only tar.
Yeah,
for the roads, and he lights it on fire. So your tires get stuck, your car lights on fire, you got to run outside, you show up burned.
He also has the new Give the Homeless a Job program where he just pays homeless people. And because it's LA, there's a lot of them. And they just stand on the sidewalk and throw Molotov cocktails at cars, and you have to dodge them, you know? And, I mean, there's always a chance that you'll burn alive every single time you try to drive somewhere.
And he pays him $500 an hour.
Which, I
And
mean,
they still won't get apartments.
yeah, no. You know how these homeless people are. They don't even want to live in places.
Yeah.
Oh, you sympathize with the homeless? Guess what? They're mentally ill, so they love outside.
Yeah, I mean, you think about Portland, they gave every single homeless person $3 million, and they still didn't want to go inside. So what does that tell you? And that's true. You can look that up on truth.org.
Yeah, if you want to check out, there's a documentary on BitChute called "The Problem That Can't Be Solved." It's about homeless people, and which we all know the fact that there's hundreds of thousands of people on the street. I mean, who knows what we can do with that? They're on the street.
I'm fine if they want to blame it on me.
Yeah, if they want to blame it on Dagnabbit boys, it's okay. I mean. We're not really good guys or anything, so it's not like,
Would you have an issue with that if they place all blame on us? If, like, for the healing of the city, they were like, okay.
If they declared us mayors of Skid Row, yeah, I guess that would make sense. It would,
Okay, you're the mayor of Skid Row.
First initiative.
Yeah.
First initiative?
Yeah, what is it?
Bike lanes for carts.
Okay, so there might be bike lanes down there.
But we got an extra bike lane for carts.
Okay, so the street's even smaller.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they do.
Also, jaywalking, no fine. They're allowed to, because I know they're doing it illegally, so they're already jaywalking. So why not just make it completely legal? Because that's never going to change.
Well, it's like they talk about, in like I think they did in Boston. With like the big dig, that was very smart. But also in like tons of European countries, they'll take like a busy street and just shut it down and just turn it into like a walkable area. Why don't we just do that in Skid Row?
Oh,
because it would help the homeless. There's less cars, and just make it a walkable area. Try it out there first. There's not going to be much pushback because there's not pushback for places where a bunch of homeless people live. You can kind of do anything, and they usually do it to just hurt them. But if they're like, why don't we just say fuck the streets, because anybody driving through here doesn't want to be here.
Yeah.
And they usually go around it anyway. So we just turn it into, trees and white sidewalks and a pond and it would get dirty, but you would be able to see some of the effects of turning a place into a walkable area. And then what if all of a sudden all those homeless guys, because they have a walkable area where they can gallivant, become, sort of respected diplomats. And then all of a sudden you go from having a homeless area.
Oh, to the rich area.
To a bunch of guys in nice blazers that are like, oh, yeah, what a nice time outside. And it's actually the nicest place in LA, where they turn into some of the most distinguished, fine men of the city.
Damn.
Where they're not rich, but they just are so respectable.
Damn, Squirty's walking around with a briefcase, and this time it's not full of human shit.
Yeah, and they're smoking cigars.
Yeah, instead of yeah.
But they are cigars. So it's like, and they're falling over and dying. But
I heard Smokey the Octopus. He loves fentanyl, so I did my studies. I brought some fentanyl to the business meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We took some sips of fentanyl.
Yeah.
Because I studied.
I watched a video, fentanyl, that night. I'm sitting on Skid Row on the sidewalk, shooting fentanyl. You know why? Because I studied. Because I studied, bro. That's why I did it.
So here's another idea I've had.
Yeah.
You know how they have the little bars on the benches? They have the little things that stand up?
Anti-homeless architecture.
Yeah. So how about we take, because they've been counting all the homeless people in LA, so we take all of them and we use experimental surgery to graft some of those on their in their backs, so they have it sticking out of their skin. So we don't have to have those on the benches. They just can't sleep on the benches.
Well, why would you put them in? Why wouldn't you do like cutouts in their body so then you make the most optimized homeless person, where they have like three, like the middle part, they just have a line of nothing. So then when they lay down, they fit in perfectly into anti-homeless architecture.
Oh,
and they have the new bus stops, which I don't know if you've noticed. It's 3 corky seats that are all different heights, so they're separated and they don't form a flat surface.
Yeah.
So then you make a guy that's like sort of like 3, sort of.
That guy would be the king of Skid Row.
He'd be the king. He'd be the hottest guy on Skid Row. If
Yeah.
he had like 3 interchanging body parts that move separately from each other, they'd be like, damn, that motherfucker can sleep anywhere. My dumbass has a flat body that looks like an idiot on these anti-homeless bus stops.
What about like, you know how they'll defang cats and stuff? Just do that with homeless people. Take their fingers off and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't stab you, which they do all the time. If you walk the streets in any major city, you get stabbed at least 4 times by homeless people.
So your idea is to cut off homeless people's fingers so they just walk around with mitts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you could take their teeth out too, so they don't bite.
I think they would die.
Well,
if you can't
negative Nancy over here.
You can't grab or chew anything. That's tough.
Well, we'll introduce mush into the food. Mush. We'll give them mush and soup, but we can't give them bread anymore.
It's tough to eat soup with it. You'd have to just pick up the mitts, I guess, and sip the bowl.
We'll have silly straws.
Why are the straws silly?
You know,
because they're silly guys.
No, just add some levity.
They do.
They don't have hands.
They do need some levity. I'll tell you that much.
I mean,
in Skid Row, they do actually just have they set out benches that you can just sleep on.
Okay.
Yeah. That was like, the Skid Row is an interesting place because they have benches. They have tons of
What if
benches,
they build like
think.
bazookas and they're like, this is the sleepy tube. You get a bunch of homeless guys in there and they light the fuse and they shoot them over LA and they fit them with fireworks. So they explode into like fireworks and it looks beautiful and everyone in LA loves fireworks.
Well, a lot of people don't know. LA has some of the best fireworks shows because there's just tons of fireworks all over the city.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't know is that they are homeless guys getting shot out of cannons, and that is the fentanyl lighting up in the air that then falls down. So you have to wear a mask during the fireworks shows or you overdose.
Yeah, and we're already super woke, so everybody on the street's wearing a mask. I mean, I have my mask on me. I just don't want to get all the disabled comrades sick because we're just so woke over here.
I think if you have a lot of money, you should be paying homeless people to ruin gentrified businesses. I think they're one of the most powerful groups in LA because their presence is so unwanted and, by business. So if you are a homeless person, you have a lot of power to ruin the business in an area,
Yeah.
So if I had millions of dollars, I think you go down to Skid Row, you give each guy $200, you get a bus, and you go, we are going to the Silver Lake Farmers Market today.
Yes.
And you fellas are going to walk around, and it's like, obviously they can't live there because the police would beat the shit out of them and make them leave. But just on Larchmont, there's some businesses I don't like. There's some businesses I like, there's old businesses. There's like mom and pop businesses. I like those, but then there's also like a place that sells, 9 donuts for $36, and I hate them. And I would love to pay 30 homeless guys a day to go in there and be their main clientele.
Yeah.
Just, you know what I mean? Just and the business, they wouldn't know what to do because they'd see the homeless guy at first and they'd be like, no. And he'd be like, no, I want to buy some donuts.
Yeah.
And so you go in and just be like, just buy donuts every fucking day.
Here are the bathroom codes. You print out different sheets of the bathroom codes.
But they won't.
All the bathroom codes of every business you want.
There's actually there's an Instagram account that does that. They just tell you the bathroom codes of places around LA.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I think if I had money, every business that annoyed me that I thought was stupid, that was just started by the son of some defense contractor, I would just pay 50 homeless guys a day to be their only clientele.
Okay.
Because they would make money, but they would eventually close the business. Just make it a homeless store. Just have the business owners be like, I don't know what's going on, but the only people that buy donuts in our shop are homeless guys. And then people don't want to come in and buy the donuts because they don't want to be around homeless people. But the homeless people aren't asking for anything. They come in with money, they buy their own stuff. And, I'm also like, hey, I'm giving you the money to buy the donuts. I'm giving you money for extra stuff too, just for doing this. And so if you want to buy Fent and be on it at the donut shop, I don't care. I'm also going to give you guys Narcan because I don't want you guys to die. And you got to look out for each other. Don't all shoot up at the same time.
That's what the Narcan's for.
Give it a 10-minute buffer.
We need a designated narker.
Yeah. Yeah, you have the designated drug. Yeah, you have the one homeless guy that's like, I actually don't do fentanyl. I'm sober. I hate working. So I got tons of Narcan. I hang out with my friends and they all do fent, but it is what it is. Yeah, I just think you have all these homeless people that are sequestered to like MacArthur Park and Skid Row and just certain areas of LA where if they leave, they're essentially harassed by the police. So it's like, let's just give them the money to go to nice shops and to sit in there.
Yeah.
What if you went to Squirrel one day off Virgil, which is a very hip, trendy spot, and there was 150 homeless guys eating breakfast?
Oh, yeah.
Then you have all these people who are like, I love homeless people. I'm very nice to them. And then it's like, all right, do you still want to come to Squirrel every day?
That guy's face is leaking into the omelet.
But he paid for it.
Yeah, he paid for that omelet.
So he can do that.
He can leak into any omelets he wants.
Yeah. And if you eat that omelet, you'll get high from his blood. Which is pretty cool. I don't know. I was just reading an article in Quebec. They legalized killing yourself.
Yeah.
Having a doctor kill you. And it took faster than anywhere else in the entire world. And I think it's very fun. It's very French that like they make it legal to kill yourself with a doctor, and immediately so many of them are like, yes. Oh my God, thank you so much.
I felt so guilty about what we did to take this place.
I don't want to go to the doctor unless I get to kill myself. And now I get to kill myself. But it's interesting. I guess it's like the guy, he's like a...
Quebec is bad, because that's the worst French. Those are the French who came to kill everybody there and establish a colony.
Yeah.
All the French in Paris were too pussy. That's why they're all sitting around thinking.
I mean, can you imagine living in France in the 1800s when it was like gorgeous and smelled like shit, but gorgeous? And then you're like, I'll go to the woods. You're crazy. You're the worst French ever. You know what I mean? It's like...
I have to kill the Native Americans?
Yeah. Like you're walking down like the Champs-Élysées, and then you're like, I would like to be in the woods. I want to kill Squanto. Do you know there are Muslim Native Americans?
No. But
I don't know if this is just absolute lies purported on Instagram, but apparently somehow Muslims got to the Americas, I think like before Christopher Columbus, because a lot of people did. The Vikings got there before. I think Leif Erikson made it. But it was interesting. There's apparently Native Americans.
Also, God started there.
There's Native Americans that met Muslims and they were into it, and they converted to Islam, but they hid it from the colonizers, like the white Europeans, so they didn't tell them we're Muslim. They created a fake religion to cover it up. They were like, we're not Muslim, and then they made up a fake thing, and the Europeans believed it so much that this fake religion was then added to like history books and put in museums. They're like, look at this beautiful Native American religion, and it was just Islam the whole time.
That sounds a little made up. That sounds a lot made up.
I've just seen so much about it. I got to do like actual research on it, but I mean, Muslims were,
You look through the history books, it's like, yeah, Instagram was fronting.
There were just so many Muslim explorers and so many people that came to America, and it's like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, but like, are we talking specific tribes and shit? How would they all have that idea?
Yeah, not all of them.
Yeah.
Not like across the nation, of course. There wasn't phones or anything. I think it was like, it might have actually been the Cherokees, but
okay.
There's like a good part of them that went Muslim.
Which
is interesting, to live on your own continent with your own belief systems. I think they were more, belief that kind of the world was alive, and I don't know if you'd call it somewhat pagan almost. And then just like Muslims come along and it's like, well. And they didn't like fuck them up and force them to do it. They're just like, okay.
Isn't it crazy? I feel like when I meet Americans who are raised Muslim, they're more likely to actually believe that a religion than somebody raised Christian or Jewish. To actually like, stick with it. I mean, you meet a Christian or a Jewish raised person out anywhere, any major city, they don't believe a single damn thing. The Jewish people might pretend to believe it, but they don't.
I think when you exist in opposition, it gives more credence to your belief. Because, like, being a Muslim in America doesn't help you out.
No.
There's a lot of anti-Muslim rhetoric here. So if you're going to be it, or if your parents are going to be it, I think you look at that and you're like, well, why would you do that if it wasn't true? Why would you do that if it wasn't a good way to live? With Christianity, there's tons of reasons you do it. It's usually the center point of socializing in a community. If you're a Muslim, you know, it's like everybody hates us here.
Yeah.
Since 9/11. So it's like, why would I do this? You know, it's the same thing as like being gay, where it's like, you know, gay guys living in a homophobic area don't take their sexuality for granted.
Yeah.
You know, they understand like what it means to be their sexuality and they take pride in it. But if you're like fucking straight in a homophobic area, it's just a given.
Yeah.
You don't think about it much. You know, it's not important to you. You don't have pride in your straightness, you know. That's always funny when people are like, why aren't there straight pride parades? And you're like, because you're not proud of it.
Yeah, it's just everybody, most people are.
It's the same thing with white pride. When people are like, why isn't there white pride parades? It's like, you're not proud of it.
Some people are. You go to prison, you end up proud of the shit.
Some people are racist, but the people saying that, being like, why aren't there parades? It's like, you could have had parades the whole time. They're started by you. It's not like the gay pride parade was given to them by somebody else. It was their idea. You've never had the idea because you've never been proud of it.
That's true. Isn't it weird when... did you see there's a show in LA and it's like a show about Judaism and then they were like all proceeds are going to the Pasadena Jewish Community Center? Why don't they just say that they're pro-Israel at that point? At this point, why can't you just be like, genocide is awesome?
Well, it might not be.
Maybe.
You know.
But if you could give it to anything, you know?
Well, I mean, if you're running a Jewish show, you're going to give it to a Jewish organization. But, you know, there's tons of Jewish organizations in America that don't agree with Israel's tactics.
But also, like, it feels like it's pretty loaded to do it now.
Well, you know, I mean, the term loaded is interesting because it's like, you know, because there's tons of Jewish people who don't believe in the identification of Judaism with Israel. You know, because that's sort of what...
But they could just say that.
That's what's like propagated by Israel, is that Judaism and Israel are inexplicably tied.
It's like it's like saying like if you said you're a Republican now, but you don't agree with that stuff, then you kind of have to say it. If you don't agree with like Trump, then you kind of have to say it. I think you just say it.
I think so, but I also think, you know, there's a certain act of defiance to just be a Jewish person who loves his religion and just supports the religious aspects of it, you know, without involving the political aspects. To ignore the political side and to say that you can be Jewish without being
But that's crazy. That's crazy to ignore the political aspects of it.
Well, I don't think it's every Jewish person's responsibility to disavow Israel. Like, I think I feel like in a way it is every Christian's responsibility to because you're putting
disavow a lot of the politics of it.
Because it's like you're sort of, you know, you're kind of putting the burden of morality on the people who didn't make those decisions, whose religion was hijacked by a nation, where it's like, if you're Jewish, you don't agree with what Israel's doing, but they keep doing bad stuff and saying it's in the name of you. You know, I think people have a right.
That would piss me off.
It would piss me off too. But I also just think people have a right to just be Jewish and to not involve themselves in that, because at its core, Judaism is not involved with the actions of Israel. Israel is involving itself with Judaism. It's
Of course it's not.
You know,
it's not. They aren't like coincided, you know. They aren't like they aren't tight. You know, they kind of are, but they're not. Like to be Jewish itself doesn't make you a Zionist, but at a certain point you kind of have to be like, well, this is what has become associated with it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it makes sense when there's
wouldn't it be the more profound thing to just give it to like a Palestinian charity instead, to just be like, I celebrate my religion, but also how my religion's been co-opted, like, is really against all of our beliefs.
Yeah. I mean, you could say that. I also just think it's, it's still profound to just be a Jew who loves his Jewishness in the age when it's being hijacked by a nation, Like, I don't think it's their responsibility to go out and do that.
But then whose responsibility is anything?
Exactly. So that's why they're able to do that, and it's fine. Like, there's not a right or wrong to this.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because it's like, I think there's so many Jewish people from the beginning of the Zionist project who do not identify themselves with Israel. And I think if you don't identify yourself with Israel, you have the right to not identify yourself with Israel and to not take a stand and to just live as a Jewish person separated from Israel. I also think you have the right to disavow Israel if you so choose to. But I think there's a lot of people who are just trying to enjoy their religion, you know what I mean, and are trying to just to live happily as Jewish people and to say, we'll do a Jewish show because we love being Jewish, and then we'll send that money to a Jewish place and they'll do Jewish stuff with it as Americans, because Israel is not Judaism and we're Jews in America doing American Jew shit, minding our own fucking business. That in and of itself, to mind your own business as an American Jew, can be considered an act of resistance against the Israeli occupation. If you'd like to.
So doing nothing is resistance to it.
You're just acting like these people have a responsibility when they have...
But we all have a responsibility to something.
No, we don't. There's no such thing as responsibility.
I really disagree.
There's just wants to do stuff. It's a completely indifferent world, and those people are, doing what they're doing, and these people are doing what they're doing, and, I mean, as much as I hate the Israeli occupation, and I think everybody should be up in arms with it, I also don't mind American Jews doing things for themselves and not involving the occupation and everything going on, Because I don't think what they're doing supports the occupation if it's not being involved in what they're doing at all,
I mean, I guess so.
Because at the end of the day, tons of American Jews have never supported Israel, but it's not about what the general populace feels. It's about what the government does. And now more than ever, the government is not aligning with the actual views of American Jewry at all. Most American Jews, many American Jews, do not support Israel. They ask the government to stop supporting Israel. But the government is beholden to the lobbies, and they want to win elections. And so they just keep doing what they're doing, not listening to the populace,
It is interesting. I don't know. Do you think most Americans don't agree with what's happening in Israel? Because it seems like that most of them don't, judging by, like, polls and shit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the numbers, but I know many American Jews do not...
I'm not talking about American Jews. I'm just talking about America as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about America as a whole, there's tons of people that don't support Israel for, like, a litany of reasons. But, there's just so many American Jews that have never supported it. And in general, I would probably guess that most Americans, for whatever reasons, do not support us giving billions of dollars to Israel. If you want to talk about the brass tacks of it, about like what that actually looks like, it's a ton of money and a ton of taxpayer money being spent on Israel. And also tangentially, like most of the wars in the Middle East are in the interest of Israel's safety. Not on our safety, in Israel's safety. Why do those wars happen? Because lobbies like AIPAC and other pro-Israel lobbies in America are the most powerful lobbies in America, and Congress people want to win elections, and they know that if they disagree with those lobbies, they're going to lose those elections, which makes them not listen to Americans. And so, like, the problem with Israel is the same problem as, like, all the people that want free healthcare, and all the people that don't like big oil, and all the people that don't like, all the terrible things in our food. Is like the populace thinks all of these things. The government continues to not listen to those things. So taking a stance against those things, I think, makes complete sense. I also think, it can make sense when people at least at a certain time, don't want to involve themselves in those things. You know what I mean? Because this is one show going to one organization. I don't know what those people are doing elsewhere in their lives, you know?
Yeah.
Because if you are saying that doing a Jewish show...
I'm talking about the context. Well, there's a lot of context here. I didn't really want to... But the person doing the show was on a podcast with a comedian who is heavily known for promoting Zionism.
Yeah. I mean...
Which the context of that is what makes me antsy about the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, they might just be Zionists. And,
yeah,
and
that's what I have a problem with.
And the Pasadena Jewish organization might be...
But I also don't know anything about it. But I could assume that... I mean, if it's a Jewish organization, at least some are going to be, you know? But that's like part of the grip the propaganda's held on a lot of people. Because we're all, like, susceptible to propaganda in every aspect of our lives.
Yeah. You just don't want to get to the point where if you see a Jewish organization, you assume it's Zionist, you know, because then Israel's winning. Because then they're...
But I wasn't assuming it because of that. I was assuming it because of the context of the other thing. I didn't really want to...
Yeah,
I feel like I'm, like...
The podcast is like, one thing where it's like a specific stance by the person.
Yeah.
And I'm not even just talking to you, but just people in general. It's like, as much as I hate the Israeli occupation, you allow the occupation to win when you start immediately thinking Zionism when you think Judaism, because that's what they want.
I picked a scab during the episode.
Boy, did you.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what they want.
Am I bleeding heavily?
I don't... Well, you're bleeding, but it seems like it's drying.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, that's always...
a violent episode.
That's always what the oppressor wants, is for their view to be absorbed by everybody in different ways.
Yes.
So it's like, when I say it's an act of resistance to not do that, even though it is not like, you know, standing outside and protesting, but it's like just to live as a Jew and to live like religiously as a Jew who loves his religion and his life and does not align himself with Israel is a form of resisting the occupation, because they want you to align everything you do with Israel, to be afraid of the fall of Israel, and to take your fear, to exploit the Holocaust, to exploit the pogroms and everything like that, for you to support a nation building. That has nothing to do with it. That didn't even protect Jews in the Holocaust.
Wait, I gotta... So, you remember the other day you were saying it'd be funny to just post a clip that has no jokes in it?
Yeah.
I feel like this would be a good episode to do that, just because of how, like, ridiculous this the contrast between you and me looks.
Yes, I think so. I think you're probably right.
That's what we have to think about doing this podcast, folks. We got to think about reels.
But it's a very scary thing. You know, I mean, you have to realize that Zionism aligns with Nazism, and they're actually both ethnocentric nation-building ideas, and they work together, where a lot of funding for the, like in the 1930s and the pre-mandate era, a lot of funding for Jewish settlements came from the Nazi Party, and they allowed because German Jews, you know, a lot of them went to Israel, and the Nazis were like, that's awesome. We'll give you money. We love this. And then during the Holocaust, there was a agency in Israel that was supposed to save Jewish people from the Holocaust, and they said themselves, they were like, well, you know, we're not going to be able to save a lot, so we only want to get good ones. We don't really care about saving Jewish life. We want to save good Jewish life to build our nation, because our point is not, you know, the safety of all Jews. It's Zionism, is to build Israel. And so, you know, you have to realize Israel is a very specific thing with very specific goals, and Zionism is very specific, you know. And then when it just gets sort of bled into Judaism as a whole is like really the most despicable thing.
Yeah.
Because it's just sad, you know what I mean? It's just an entire group of people, an entire religion that's hijacked by a small group of people who have a very specific idea of what that group should be doing. And obviously, when you're a small group and you're fighting for something that monumental, you're the loudest, you know? Because all the other Jews were fine. Like, you know, when all these Zionism lobbies were popping up, there weren't Arab lobbies, and there weren't like a lot of anti-Zionist lobbies popping up, because they were like, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
But then that kind of indifference can, you know, poke at that, you know. But Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if the guy running that show's a Zionist, and that Jewish organization is also Zionist. That being said, it's like, is that money going to go to building Israel? Probably not. Chances are members of that organization might give money to Israel. Chances are they're probably going to spend it on a fucking new PA system.
Yeah.
So,
well, I do want to do a call out on a friend of the podcast for giving $100 to Israel, Mr. Kurt Steinmuller. He gave $100 to Israel when he was 18. This is a call out for you. So if you want to say anything about Mr. Kurt Steinmuller.
Kurt Steinmuller is a really interesting figure in American because he's not a politician, but he has been part of several Christian Zionist lobbies, which are the most powerful they've ever been, with like John Hagee, guys like that, megachurch pastors who believe in the Zionist project, but for Christian ends, which, as we mentioned on this podcast, Zionism is originally a Christian evangelical idea to, get the Jews to Israel, bring back Jesus, vanquish all the Jews, have the resurrection, everything like that. So essentially what Kurt wants is for Jesus to come back, and he's sort of exploiting the Jewish people in an effort to do so. And Christian Zionism is an interesting thing, and a lot of people think of Kurt Steinmuller as a really nice guy who does stand-up comedy in L.A. and likes to animate things, and
he does a YouTube channel. It's referred to as Kurt Gone Wild. A lot of people associate him with his animal rights work there.
Yeah, and he himself is not, the richest guy in the world. He makes a decent amount of money. He takes care of himself. But he does have control over budgets that, we're talking about, I don't know, probably $15 million a year.
Yeah.
A lot of that is going to building new settlements in the West Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously with the decimation we're seeing in Gaza and the ethnic cleansing that's occurring, we're starting to think settlements could start being built over there, and that's scary.
Yeah.
And, if you think of what Israel needs to be scared of, it's, if you think of what the Palestinians need to be scared of, it's the Likud party, and it's John Hagee, and it's Kurt Steinmuller. And it's scary. You know what I mean? It's scary to look at the scope of the world, and it's interesting how much it doesn't come up with Kurt, that he is actually the current chairman of Christians for Israel. But he is, and it's interesting.
And it's kind of a weird. Our relationship is very weird. He's a very fun guy to hang out with. I like to talk. I like to, be around him, talk about comedy, talk about, other stuff, while, he's behind this really powerful organization. And I think, we need to check him more as friends of him,
And, you might look up his name, Kurt Steinmuller, and you might find nothing about this. Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled.
Yes, we know him well.
That he, even though you can't find a single thing tying him to any Christian Zionist organization besides $100 that he donated when he was 18, I guess, because he felt bad. I saw a really funny video today. Hamas released some hostages.
Yeah.
Israeli hostages they'd taken. And the guy they were releasing was kissing the heads of the Hamas guys. And I sent it to my friend. I was like, Hamas has better political imaging than Hillary Clinton. Like this guy was taken prisoner. Because he's an IDF soldier, so there's war crimes right there. But he was taken prisoner by Hamas for months, and he's getting out. He's kissing these guys' heads.
Yeah,
it's bad when it's good. It's amazing. It's bad for Israel.
Yeah,
when those videos come out. Can you imagine how fucking mad Netanyahu and like Ben Gvir are when they see that, and they're like, "Fuck." And that guy works for the state. He's IDF. He's supposed to.
They give him pizza on Fridays.
Yeah, he's supposed to, he's supposed to come out and be like, I got every day, but instead he's coming out being like, I tried so many new foods, and
they had a GameCube with all the games.
Can you
they
imagine?
Had a memory card that you put in and it lets you play all the games.
It would just be so funny to be an IDF soldier and like,
Hamas is so good at torrenting. They would get movies before they even came out.
Yeah, I got a Steam Deck in there.
Yeah, they had a projector, and we'd have movie night every night.
Just being educated as an IDF soldier would just be so funny. Like before October 7th, you think Israel invented hummus, and then you're like being held captive, and over a few months, you're like, what? Are you serious? He's like, I thought you guys were trying to kill us in the Nakba. And they're like, no, I mean, with all the Arab nations rose up against you because of the continual massacre and genocide that had been happening before the establishment of the state. And he's like, oh my gosh. Jeez Louise. But, I was sipping Johnny Walker Black with Netanyahu the other day. You know why? Because I studied.
Yeah.
I found out his favorite drink, Palestinian child's blood.
Yeah.
Next thing I'm doing, sitting in the war room with him, sipping Palestinian child blood.
Man, I was drinking tears with Netanyahu.
Mm-hmm.
I studied.
Mm-hmm.
I found out a video of his favorite drink. Shit was tears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Philly guy, Netanyahu. Went to high school in Philly.
Yep. We got cheesesteaks. Motherfucker in the war room eating cheesesteaks.
I mean, how you gonna commit a genocide and be like, where's the cheesesteak at? How you gonna commit a genocide and be like, go birds?
My man got Kensington on his resume talking about let me rebuild, let me take over Israel. Look what I did to Philly.
He up there talking about, yeah, we gonna establish greater Israel. Yeah, we gonna go in there, decimate the whole population, keep committing a long drawn out act of ethnic cleansing and genocide.
He went to school with somebody famous.
He did?
Yeah, but somebody went to school with him that it's really funny that they went to school together, but I don't remember who it is.
John Candy?
Yeah, him and John Candy went to school together, and they had like a little, they used to do improv together.
John Candy was like, I want to be a funny man when I grow up, and he's like, I want to decimate Gaza. Whoa. Okay, fella. All right.
Yeah, it's John Candy's from Canada, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, I think it came full circle because we talked about Canada at one point, and then I mentioned Canada again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say full circle. I don't know. Trump has said I think maybe his biggest claims ever.
Yeah?
I think he really made a point to make his biggest claims ever. To take Canada. Even for him, that's...
Isn't it funny to watch people try to make fun of Trump in comedy, and it's like so much less ridiculous? All they do is they just take Trump, and they're like, yeah, Trump is... here's my impression of Trump. He said the fucking black people, their blood is black. And that's their bit. And it's like, well, you listen to what he's saying. It's just like insane, so much more insane things. It's like almost no reason to even talk about it.
Well, yeah, you can't have a Trump joke now that's just isn't Trump crazy.
Yeah.
It's like anything you write is not going to be that funny.
I guess that's what they say about like fascism, that it's like, well, they want you they want you to know that it's ridiculous. That's part of the control. They just get to say what they want.
Is that what they say?
So Sartre says. It's impossible to argue with a fascist because he knows what he's saying is ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. That's why he had such a good debate style.
Yeah.
It's like Hillary Clinton trying to be like, but you're not telling the truth. And it's like, are you a fucking idiot? Yeah, it's not the playing field he's on. It's like you're throwing all this stuff at him. It doesn't matter. If he was playing the game you're playing, he would. But why would he play the game you're playing of, like, truth? It wouldn't help him. He's doing just what helps him. Whatever advantageous to him, he'll do.
Well, I mean, if we've learned anything from Trump's 2 presidencies, it's that school doesn't work and we got to abolish homework because motherfuckers be getting into politics thinking this shit is homework.
Homework was abolished. He should do, like, class president stuff.
Yeah.
He should be like soda in the water fountains.
Yeah. Yeah, and Miss whatever has to stop being such a bitch when you're late.
That'd be funny.
No more tardies.
He just honed in on one teacher. Miss Applegate. Very rude lady. She works at Westmoreland High School in Detroit. For 3 months, he just fucking goes at this
I was
lady.
3 minutes late. She sent me to the principal's office.
Well,
I was talking to my friends in the hallway.
It would just be funny if there's absolutely no connection. It's like, he didn't go to that school. His kids don't go to that school. She's just a teacher, and she's watching the news, and she's like, what the fuck? Science. She's bad at it. I don't like her.
I heard she's a real stickler about you wearing your school ID.
Intelligent organizations are like, should we check up on this lady? I don't get it. He keeps talking about her. I don't understand.
I guess her husband's fat.
Well, I don't know how funny of an episode this was.
There's some things at the beginning.
I think it was bad.
Do you think so?
I think we did a bad job.
Fuck.
Yeah.
What should we do? Leave a comment and tell us what we should do next week. And we'll change it. We'll fix it.
I think as much as we love to talk about the occupation, I don't think people want to hear it.
You don't think so?
And it takes you out of a funny mood.
Yeah, because it's sad.
It's not very funny. It's the worst part about the occupation of Palestine is that it's rarely funny.
Yeah. Maybe if Israel started doing some funny ass shit, we could talk about that.
Sometimes there's stuff, but
Israel, it's Jewish people, they invented comedy. What are they doing now? They're killing people. So I guess that's the height of comedy.
And people thought comedy was dumb when it was invented.
Yeah.
So maybe in 50 years we'll look back and say,
Thank you.
thank you.
Now we can do it.
Maybe Netanyahu will win a Mark Twain Award for how absolutely goofy of a guy he is.
Yeah, it is pretty goofy to kill that many people over ethnic cleansing.
I mean, to call Hamas an existential threat to the survival of Israel is pretty goofy.
Yeah.
It's just not, as John Mearsheimer would say, it's not a serious argument.
Yeah, which, funny.
And a lot of people say that comedy is pushing boundaries. And
it's a bigger boundary than shooting a bunch of babies and then throwing them in a hole.
They're pushing the boundary, for sure.
Yeah.
Are people mad at the occupation of Palestine just because comedy is illegal now?
I think that there is a chance. I do think Elon Musk made it legal again, so we're about to see a lot of we're about to see a lot of changes when the way we talk about Israel soon.
I want to see that guy get just sawed in half.
Well, when we meet the president, which you probably will meet multiple presidents, I don't want any of this stuff going on our file.
He's such a wildly unlikable person.
I mean, he's the most annoying guy I've literally ever seen, ever.
Like, it's crazy. Because it's like, obviously, you learn about him on paper and you're like, that guy sucks. And then, like, you say that guy sucks and everybody says it so much. But then you watch him and you're like, no, but really, like, truly the worst guy I think that I've ever seen. Like,
yeah.
He's one of the worst people that's ever lived.
I mean, he's up there. Like, in terms of pure, like, pound for pound annoyingness, there's literally no one in history.
To have $1 million is annoying.
Yeah.
And it's wrong. And then to also just personality-wise be so... I mean, he makes Trump look so likable.
Yeah.
Because you watch Trump in interviews, and I don't like things that are Trump's doing, but I like to hear the guy talk. And you can tell that he can talk to anybody because he's a rich guy, and so most of your life is socializing. So, like, when he's on a show, he's like, oh, okay, he knows how to, like, somebody would tell him something, he's like, and how's that going for you? Like, because his whole life is bullshit conversations. Fucking Musk is trying to, like, he's like a 14-year-old that watches those videos where it's like how to be the most interesting man in the world. And there's just that video that we're both talking about where he was like, I mean, the woke made comedy illegal, and he's like putting on a fake voice. It's so weird. What's comedy legal again, right? Why do you care about comedy?
Yeah. I mean, he just cares about internet memes and shit.
He's like the worst rich guy I've ever seen at hiding. Like, rich guys always try and kind of pretend that they understand human nature and humanity. He's so bad at it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, him acting like he's sitting on a yacht being like, oh, I'm so upset you can't be funny anymore. None of your life is funny. Nothing you do is funny. You don't like being funny.
I think he just likes being racist, and being funny is a good way to be racist. It's like it's actually kind of the perfect way to be racist.
Yeah, it just seems like he's the only reason he likes comedy is because of the excuses you can use it for.
Yeah.
To just say something awful and be like, I was being funny. He really is like the worst comedians ever who just like go up and spew hate speech and like, well, that's comedy. And it's like, no, you're abusing the idea of comedy to be racist.
Yeah.
I think that's the only reason he likes comedy. It's not like he simply likes being funny.
He probably like is really into Joe Rogan. I feel like a lot of those guys.
He's on his podcast all the time.
Yeah, I mean, those guys. I guess he's one of those guys that like didn't even know stand up, like didn't even consider stand up until Rogan talked about it a bunch.
I also think I feel like you could tell he really doesn't like comedy because I bet if you told him a really simple, and we've talked about this, how like if you tell him a really simple, not controversial, just a funny, simple joke, he'd be like, yeah, I'm not into that type of shit. I'm into that crazy stuff. And it's like, well, if you really liked comedy, you could appreciate just a silly little joke.
Yeah.
But you don't because you think comedy has to meet some end.
Yeah.
Which is, for you, I guess, being racist.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could maybe, if you took a simple joke and then, made the main guy in the joke black or something, he'd be like, oh, that's so true. Like, it doesn't, he'd like conflate it with some stereotype that he invented just now.
I don't know. I would just love to see him like injected with something that like just makes his skin like turn itself inside out and like just. I really want to watch him die.
Yeah, I mean, it really is hard to not look at any video of him and not think about graphic torture.
And then you just think about the people that see those videos and they're like, this guy's awesome. And then you're like, that sucks. People see this guy and like him. Like, it's one thing for him to suck and to exist. Okay. But then there's people that like him. And
think he's doing, like, really good work.
This is a bigger problem. I mean, when are we going to ditch the belief that it's just like, well, he's going to make everything better for everybody?
Yeah.
It's like, sure, there are guys that do monumental things. Like invent, like Tesla, Nikola Tesla.
Do you think part of the reason that people even give a shit about him is because of the pandemic? Like we lost years of socializing, so have like a lot of people have just less of a thing in their brain to just be able to pick up immediately when a guy just sucks.
I think he's just something people always grasp on to millionaires. There's a lot of people that still believe that if you're a millionaire, you completely deserve it. There's a lot of people that still believe in like, well, there's just special people and they're better than everybody else. And, he's the richest man in the world. He's going to space. He's as dumb as he is. And as much as we don't buy a second of it, he's good at marketing because there are people that do buy every bit of it. And there are people that just live in this kind of optimistic world where they're like, he's fucking awesome. And he's making it better for all of us maybe we could also be that, and it's just like, you're just not.
Yeah, I mean, another thing to say about Elon, in vitro fertilization, he also did that with a bunch of kids. So he's not a man. No. He's a pussy.
Yeah, I think that...
Like Andrew Schultz.
I think the losing years of socializing has a bigger effect on the children than it does the adults.
Yeah, but I feel like, a lot of people that like him are probably children, too. Like, if you lost 3 years of socializing when you were 15, if you lost 3 if you were 18 to 21, that's a huge fucking...
Yeah.
I feel like we underestimate how many young people probably love those guys.
Well, there's a new... we're like one of the saddest generations ever because a lot of us just, anything we do, we want to make it profitable. So there's tons of people who are really into business. Like the guy who I was talking about at the beginning of this episode. It's like, there's this whole new wave of guys who are like, you can just fucking do this. Why don't you do that?
Yeah.
Making you feel bad for working at McDonald's. It's like, not everybody's going to day trade.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think the episode's coming to an end. You got anything to plug?
No, I've never done anything in my entire life, and I don't have any good things coming for me.
Okay, so Party City, we're having a sale. I don't know if you guys knew, but I'm CEO of Party City. So go to your local Party City. All the costumes are half off. So if you're trying to get a costume in time for next Halloween, come check it out. You want to be a sexy nurse, you know? You want to be a pumpkin head? Come check this shit out. Party City. Every single one. All right, bye, everybody.
Congrats on that.